The goal was really to have a multidisciplinary approach. Therefore, we did not only redesign reusable packaging, but we also focused on all the aspects, meaning ensuring safety, reducing microplastics, ensuring consumer acceptance, looking at the technological solution, but also assessing ecological impact, social impact, and economical also impact. So all this was the result of the project, and I'm very pleased to show this to you today. Buddie-Pack is a project of 19 partners across 6 European countries. The project lasted nearly 4 years with a budget of 7 million euros. So as I said, we did focus on the technical solutions. So we did redesign the packaging for 6 business cases. And the goal was then to test them during large-scale demonstrations, so in real life, for several months. And for each business cases that you can see here, we had around 1,000 packaging per use case used in 6 different business applications, from B2B to B2C, and also in canteens and in supermarkets, going at the home of the customers, but also staying in closed loop. So now we will watch a short video that will show you how did the large-scale demonstrations work.
The new EU regulations will ban single-use plastics by 2030 for certain packaging. It is becoming urgent to rethink our packaging to make it sustainable, safe, and reusable. That is precisely the objective of Buddie-Pack, a project funded by the European Union under Horizon Europe that has developed solutions for reusable plastic packaging and tested them in several market applications, encompassing daily life uses for food and home care goods. 6 case studies have been deployed across Europe, covering 2 possible methods for the packaging return on-site and from home. Reusable semi-rigid mono-portion trays have been tested by Orzalan in a company canteen in Spain. Another format with 8 portions has also been designed for hotel kitchens. The trays are collected and washed by our partner Eternity Systems. Traceability is planned during the storage phase. For takeaway food, reusable 3-compartment bowls have been introduced in corporate canteens in France. The user upload an app to order the meal with the reusable bowl. The goal is to make it easier for consumers to return the bowls and to integrate this action into their habits. In fresh beef distribution, a semi-rigid vacuum skin pack tray, thermoformed and thermosealed, has been tested in the bars and restaurant sector in Ireland. Objective: to design a reusable food contact tray that could compete with single-use alternatives in cost, safety, durability, and recyclability. Reusable pre-packaged food trays have been put on shelves in a supermarket in France. Thanks to a deposit system, the end consumers return the empty container to the point of sales and get a voucher. The result? A simple loop for the customer, controlled industrial washing by usage, and guaranteed traceability. Finally, in the detergent sector in Spain, solutions involving reusable laundry detergent bottles using a refill dispenser machine have been tested. The consumer fills the empty bottle with detergent directly from the machine, and it can be reused for up to 11 times. Buddie-Pack demonstrates that reuse is possible, safe, and ready for scaling up. Thanks to innovation, science, and European cooperation, the project paves the way for reduction in single-use plastic. An ambitious, innovative success, and an essential step towards the circular economy of tomorrow.
So you could see during the video that the large-scale demonstrations gave us some real feedback. So that was really interesting, and we had key findings from Buddie-Pack. First, the problem of some regulatory barriers, fragmented national rules, evolving obligation, and uncertainties around compliance. It's also very important, the technical and safety aspects, but also the market and business conditions. Economic viability is highly dependent on infrastructure maturity, the number of reuse cycles, reverse logistics, and retailer readiness. So that's really the goal of Buddie-Pack, thanks to all the insights from the demonstration, that we can provide data to understand better the environmental and economic break-even point of our reuse packaging. And that's really important in the EU context, because all plastic packaging must be recyclable or reusable by 2030. Therefore, we have been writing policy recommendations. We have 3 policy briefs that are available at our booth, D24, if you're interested to know more. And we are speaking about harmonized frameworks, helping regulatory barriers, and also the need for standardized testing and safety criteria for reusable plastic packaging. Now I will leave you with Leah, the moderator, and the round table for Buddie-Pack. Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. Also very welcome from me to our policy roundtable discussion today. And as Florence already said, we will focus on the outcomes of the policy and standard recommendations that we worked on in the Buddie-Pack project. Throughout the Buddie-Pack project, we came up with 3 policy briefs that Florence already said you can pick up at the table on D24, but also some and a deliverable on the business cases. For reusable packaging, we worked on policy recommendations and standard recommendations. So the outcome of the project really was to emphasize the critical importance of harmonized definitions, legal alignment for packaging, so also linking to health and contamination, and really robust incentives infrastructures to effectively scale reuse systems across the European Union. As we transition from single-use packaging to reusable packaging, it's of course very essential to create frameworks that ensure legal clarity for everybody, economic viability, and interoperability among the member states as well. So that's also something we want to talk about today. Key highlights from the Buddie-Pack project were therefore to basically show evidence-based recommendations derived from the use cases, and to address the key barriers in all regards to policy, infrastructure, and system level. What we also want to talk about today is aligning national legislation, of course, with EU guidance, and a big part of it is economic incentives, and to make sure that market is actually ready to scale, to ensure viability for reuse systems are improved across the European Union, and also to support behavior change, because that is also needed. So I'm really much looking forward to our conversation today. We have lots to explore for recommendations that came out of the project, and how to best shape the future of reuse in Europe. Because the time frame is of course a bit limited to go in detail for all the aspects. We'll be mainly focusing on enabling market scaling through supportive infrastructure, improving the economics of reuse systems across the European Union, and as well to boost user acceptance and behavior change. So we have a wealth of knowledge sitting at this stage, looking at the issues from very different aspects. and angles. So before I'm starting, I would like everybody to present themselves and their backgrounds. Please. I'm just going to start with you, I guess.
Hello everyone, I'm Kieran Demangeat. I'm part of the Citeo reuse team. So Citeo is the PRO, Producer Responsibility Organization for household packaging in France. And my mission is to contribute to projects involving plastic packaging, learn from best practice, just like Buddie-Pack, and help the French market transition into the most suitable solutions.
Hi, I'm Sanna. I'm an expert in circular economy, working at the European Environment Agency, which is an independent EU agency for the environment. And we provide timely, relevant and actionable data on environment and climate to support, which we say, evidence-based decision-making to policymakers.
Thank you. My name is Martin Politzar. I'm from the European Commission, from DG Research and Innovation. Our DG is responsible for writing the topics for Horizon Europe research work program for the area of circular economy, and this project, Buddie-Pack, came out of the call from 2021, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, there you go.
I'll try this microphone. Hello, I'm Thomas Webb. I'm a psychologist from the University of Sheffield in the UK. I've been studying consumers' behaviour, what they do, what they don't do, why they do what they do, and why they don't. I've worked on a number of reuse projects, including the Many Happy Returns project, which was funded by UK government, and that's then progressed on to being part of this project, the Buddie-Pack project, funded by the European Commission.
And I'm Frank. I'm one of the co-founders of Reset. Reset is a consultancy boutique specialized for anything that goes from transition, environmental transition for different industry, textile, furniture, packaging, cosmetics, whatever. And I'm here today. I'm not part of Buddie-Pack project, but we run, let's say, the twin project of Buddie-Pack. Same thing, funded by the EU through Horizon Europe, working on reuse scheme in different countries. So we had time to exchange, try to nurture the two projects. And it's good to share all the insight from the different project that has been laid under this umbrella.
Thanks for the introduction. We're going to dive right in and start with some interesting learnings from Buddie-Pack, where the project tested many theories on consumer behavior, actually. And we tested, what supports uptake, what doesn't support uptake, what may even create adverse effects to uptake. So Thomas, I'd like to really know, based on the behavior research you done with the University of Sheffield, what are the most effective strategies for encouraging consumers to participate in reuse systems, and how could they be implemented in EU-wide policy frameworks?
Thank you. So we all know consumer engagement is extremely challenging. One of the strategies that has proved effective in the Buddie-Pack project is surcharges on single use. A lot of people are using surcharges on single use, and we think they're effective, but one of the things that we've done within the Buddie-Pack project is actually show with data that they are effective and what level of surcharge you need. So we've worked with the Vital scheme. So Vital are a provider of a reusable packaging solution for takeaway food and drink. And we've modeled engagement with the Vital scheme under conditions of no surcharge on single use, 30 cents, 50 cents, I think it was 70. And what you find is that any surcharge increases engagement with the reuse system. The larger the surcharge, you do get an increase in engagement, but it's relatively small. So what it suggests is you don't actually need it to be a large amount of money, but you need it to be a penalty. So it's much like the carrier bag charge. And one of the things that I think is interesting is then what companies do with that surcharge. So one of the things that we've been doing at the University of Sheffield, where we operate the Vital scheme, is we've been putting that surcharge into funding the reuse offering, which you might think, well, that makes perfect sense. But I think there is a danger from the point of view of a psychologist, because someone could justify taking the single-use option as an environmentally sound choice because they're funding reuse. So one of the things I've been half-jokingly saying to the university is we should be saying that the surcharge on single-use goes straight into the Vice-Chancellor's salary. And I think we need to make the surcharge as unappealing as possible for people to pay. So that's one thing that I think works. I do want to note just one thing that I think doesn't work, and that's trying to reassure people. So we know that people have concerns about reuse systems. They might worry that things aren't as clean as they want them to be, that other people have used them, that somehow they're being tracked in some way because they're scanning QR codes, RFID tags, these sorts of things. People don't like these ideas. Communications, posters that try to reassure people, telling them that reusable containers are cleaned in the same way as proper hygienic standards, that the tracking isn't GPS enabled, it's only like the same as you do with your credit card when you scan it on a till point. It doesn't help. It makes things worse because the people who hadn't thought of these things, now all of a sudden it's in their head. So I really think one of the things you don't try and do is reason with people. And that's not because people are stupid, it's because people are quite clever and they're very attuned to things that might be problematic for them. So I think it's much better to design a system that doesn't put these concerns to people, or at least puts them in the back end where they aren't seen by the consumers.
Thank you, Thomas. Very interesting. These are also insights, of course, that can inform policymakers what to do, such, for example, in the Netherlands, where we have now a fee on single-use items that we have to pay as a consumer. Next to that, at the same time, of course, it's also very important to understand for the industry themselves, which country can we move in? Where is it good to start at when we want to implement reuse systems? And for this, in the Buddie-Pack project, we also looked at or started a high-level readiness assessment for all the different EU countries to really identify what are drivers and look mainly at the infrastructure availability in the countries, the regulatory alignments in the countries, and the market conditions, basically, for reuse actors to start. And while we do that in parallel, there's also the Reuse Observatory starting under the PPWR, which is, of course, there to develop EU instruments to collect data and to support the implementation of reuse. And that kind of flows hand in hand with, I think, what we started there in Buddie-Pack. So, Sanna, it would be interesting to know what kind of tools is the Reuse Observatory planning to develop as an intersection of policy development, but also support basically the industry in practical implementation to inform them what to do. And also, on the other hand, how can the industry really support the Reuse Observatory with information they have, what they need, and make this a really hands-on tool to work together.
Thank you for the question. So, this Reuse Observatory is something we're just setting up at the EA in collaboration with DG Environment. And our first step has been to reach out to EU member states and IONET countries and ask them to nominate a national lead expert on packaging reuse. And as of today, we have 31, experts in the network. Last week, they all received a questionnaire, which is, of course, voluntary for them to fill in. And there we are trying to get information on the current systems in place, the planned systems, measures in place to promote reusable packaging and reusable packaging systems, and planned, and also what support they need to drive this progress. So that will give us a baseline. Another question is how the Reuse Observatory can support their work. As a next step, we will invite other stakeholders to an online event in November. I can say now it's going to be the 11th of November. And then we will reach out to other stakeholders, and we will present the findings from this first, should we say, mapping and assessment. And it will also be a report next year. The Reuse Observatory will be fully operational from February next year. And by the time next year, I hope we can be here and present our first baseline findings, reflections on policies, and where we are at packaging reuse in Europe. But this is kind of a co-creation also with everyone. So I also encourage you to reach out to me if you would be interested in be part of this. I think there is my email address somewhere. And we will also come with some reach out later to everybody engaged in this. I don't know if that's answered your question.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I think that's the most key aspect is really from what we also in such a research as Buddie-Pack see, okay, this is something we need. There's data lacking on EU level. And how can we actually get in touch and make sure we fill these data gaps that we have at the moment? Because yeah, it makes it quite hard, and the data we have there is only proxy data based on stuff you collect somewhere, but to like intensive deep dive on EU country level is definitely helpful, I'm sure, for the industry. Yep. Yeah, well, alongside data and monitoring, which is surely very important for everyone, we also have the PROs, producer responsibility organizations, and they help, of course, to operationalize governance frameworks and translate policy really into, well, implementing reuse on the ground. And one of the key enablers for reuse is shared infrastructure. That's something we came across many times in the project. Was it's not just about individual packages and business cases, but it's really about companies being able to participate in a shared infrastructure and make use out of this. So this is linking to collection systems, cleaning systems, but also redistribution of packaging. And it's quite costly and ineffective if every company has to start from zero every single time. So yeah, we need to work on a unified or like a shared infrastructure system that allows to operate across the value chains and in different geographies. So today we have Kieran here with us on the table from Citeo, and we would really like to know how can PROs support national-wide collection systems to enable deposit return schemes for reuse, and also how do you at the moment foresee coordination across borders?
Well, thank you for the question. PROs, they play a crucial role because we sit at the intersection of producers, reuse operators, retailers, packaging manufacturers, consumers, policymakers. And you talked about reuse system and the infrastructure. Well, we also developed the infrastructure for recycling and how the system works. And funny enough, it's a quite similar job for reuse because we need collection, we need logistics, we need a system that is easy for consumer and information communication on how it works. And that's something that we already have done for recycling. And we are participating in creating it for reuse. There's two different ways that we help. The first one is obviously the financial part. Over the last 3 years, we spent 170 million euros in the development of reuse in France, including infrastructures. So when I say infrastructures, it's developing a standardized packaging and making them available for producers. It's providing RVM and semi-manual collection equipments to retailers. It's also helping the scaling up of washers in terms of hygiene to meet producer standards, and also support the collection fees and transportation cost of reusable packaging, just as it is the case for single use and recycling.
And has there been any work done already on cross-border challenges in this regard? Or you can also imagine as a PRO, it's not that you have the answers to everything, but maybe do you have also challenges that you're facing, and how do you foresee this?
Well, before speaking of cross-border, there is also the how we create this new reuse scheme, reuse system. And we don't have anything in plans, anything in place in France nationwide for reuse. And that's a bit of a pity, but also a chance, because it allows us to create anything from scratch. And we try to design a system that is quite global in terms of product types, with different packaging materials, and also packaging types. So not only bottled, but also jars, trays, and not only glass, but also plastic, stainless steels, and everything. So that's speaking of national. And when we speak about cross-border, we have another EU-funded project that has been recently approved, which is called Interpool. It has a budget of 6.6 million euros, is led by 14 partners in Belgium, France, Netherlands, and Germany, including 3 PROs, so not only Citeo, but also Verpact and Vosplust from the Netherlands and Belgium. And our main goal is to tackle the cross-border issues for reuse system to allow the scaling up even further of reuse. We have a lot of different issues from VAT to logistic and even information system. So we focused on glass packaging, jars, and bottles. And it has just started in 2026 and will last to 2029.
Okay, so that's, we look forward for the insights on that, surely. That I think also quite links to something Frank has mentioned before, working in different countries, but also from an EU's perspective. First to Martin, maybe the question of, we heard now this is of course also an EU-funded project, but what other investments, because what we also heard now is there's a lot of investments actually needed to fund this, to first set up the infrastructure, and to be fair, the infrastructure also wasn't there for recycling in the beginning or a single-use packaging, so it just makes sense that you need support from that. What kind of investment mechanisms and policy instruments are currently being developed to fund public and shared returnable infrastructure or reuse infrastructure? And where do you see still some policy gaps?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I will try to maybe structure it in a couple of areas. So first of all, what is already in place, what already exists as financing instruments or funding instruments for the, so to say, deployment of collection sorting schemes. There are instruments, first of all, through the Horizon Europe, obviously, as the calls we mentioned, and the projects that we have. Then we have LIFE program, which is still ongoing, and there are also calls. Then we have cohesion funds managed through DG Regio, which have a huge amount of funds actually exactly for the deployment and establishment of collection and sorting. And every country gets their part in that. And those are already established financing mechanisms for that. Second layer is financing through banks. The most evident, in terms of volume, the biggest one is the EIB. So the European Investment Bank is already having instruments in place. One of the instruments you might have heard about is InvestEU. And on the InvestEU, you have specific windows, and one of the windows, or a couple of windows, are actually specifically covering thematic area of circular economy. And as we all know, or those of us who know what circular economy is about, and it's not just about recycling, it's about reuse as well. So there's a huge potential to actually tap into that money from InvestEU windows to actually get money mobilized for this infrastructure. Then another, let's say, angle of looking into this is the instruments, and Kieran already mentioned this. I mean, for me, I mean, this is necessarily the position of the whole Commission, of course, but my personal take is that the EPR schemes are going to play absolutely crucial role in this, and the way they're going to be set up, and the way the system is going to be set up to actually favor higher value our strategies such as reuse. So this is something that we need to look at, all of us. I mean, including the hopefully my colleagues at DG Environment and DG Grow who are going to be looking at that, and hopefully we might see some indications of this in the upcoming Circular Economy Act, hopefully, because we need to stimulate reuse before resorting to recycling, and that is important to keep in mind. And maybe last point I wanted to tackle upon, which is a bit very specific, but I think it will be a good instrument to make use of for promoting reuse strategies, is public procurement. So why don't we make much more use of public procurement into reuse in all different, not only packaging, but all different kinds of sectors that could then lead the way further, you know, and favor and stimulate and incentivize these systems. So that's my take.
Yeah, thank you. Very interesting. And I see Sanna taking already lots of notes. So that's great. We hope to see this back in the Reuse Observatory, also how the different countries are picking up strategies there and what the opportunities are, because again, we figured that this is key for the industry to understand where is fertile ground, where can we start. And also with the Buddy project itself now that we're basically having our final meetings this week, and it's very nice to see where we came to. But it's also a big question, where do we go from here? Because we're basically in the baby shoes, and now we need to do something with it. So now this is really about scaling what has been done, and so we are looking for basically also other EU funding for the use cases, and also for exactly what we came through was a lot of infrastructure that could be shared across these use cases, for the EU not just fund basically the basics developments, but then also to scale this. So I think I would also really like to learn something from other EU projects. We've already putting so much funding in these things, and it's so much learnings, and it's very important also across the different projects to align and exchange with each other. So in the PR3 project, you of course, as Reece said, worked on different infrastructure across different countries, and you can also provide a bit of insights on what are the different conditions in different countries. That was also a big question from our sides and something where we start looking into. So, Frank, I mean, first of all, feel free to introduce a little bit more what you've been doing exactly, and then really like to know what are your your two most important lessons from the project on what works in terms of infrastructure and what is needed for scaling across the diverse contexts in the EU.
Yeah, so at Reset we led the Air-Free Pack project. It was under the Horizon Europe umbrella, and the idea was to try to replace plastic through two means. First, substitution, and second, reuse. And for reuse, we started in 2020 with the idea that standardized packaging would be the only solution to meet both the environmental criteria, or the environmental benefits, real benefits of reuse, but also the economical one. We start to work on this, and it was really interesting, but there's many hurdles. And so one of the hurdles is one of the hurdles that is really important for policy is everything related to antitrust. To build a new industry, you need cooperation, and the EU has proven in the past that it can be done with a lot of success in the aerospace, for example, on the innovator industry, or in defense, and that's maybe what we need now. The fact is that when you don't work under the umbrella of a PRO, because the PRO is sort of immune to antitrust policy in a way, because we all know that antitrust everywhere in Europe are looking now at PRO, but let's say that because by law it is asked to brands to regroup under a same roof, it's easier for PRO. But to really build standardized packaging, to build an entire reuse industry, we need cooperation across the value chain and also horizontally between brands and retailers. And we all know that for antitrust, relationship between brands and retailers is kind of complex. During the last 5 years, it was okay because it was not deploying. So competing on or collectively work on common R&D project is okay. Scaling things is more complex when in regard to antitrust. And this needs to be really addressed at the policy level, especially for sustainability matters, not only for reuse, but also in the textile industry, for many industry. And the problem is even more sensible now that Donald Trump is president of the USA, because a lot of big companies or big initiatives such as Consumer Good Forum and so on begin to receive letters from General Attorney in the US trying to attack all these initiatives, saying that it is not compliance with the antitrust. And I think that it would be important to have a sort of shield by the EU to protect the one who wants to collectively address this subject, because the only solution will come from this collective action. So that's one of the learning on it's even more sensible now. The last 12 months has been kind of dangerous for brands cooperating on these kind of things. The second thing that is not, and I won't go back on cross-border things, VAT problems, policy stability, and so on. But the other things more operational is that, and that's why I don't like when we ask what are the two most important topics. When you are at the R&D stage, experimentation phase, you can focus on 1-2 topics to try to crack the code on these very topics. But when it comes to scaling, you must build things to last at scale. That means that you need to solve all the little problems, information system, paperwork, administrative things, management, and so on. And it's thousands and thousands of little things that you don't have to cover when you experiment, because experimenting is a bit like playing. But scaling things is really living the life. It's like being a kid and being an adult. I think you have more fun. We had more fun when we were kids. I don't know for you, but for me, it's the case. So the fact is that it is really important to not to be candid about all the things to be done, to be resilient, and to take things one by one, and also manage the expectation of your leadership. Because leaders don't see all these little things and they can be impatient, and you have to cope with it when you manage things. So a lot of, let's say, communication, not lying, and it's really hard to put the cursor, because to raise funds for startups, to commit your manager, you want to say that things will work, that things will run fast and so on, but the reality is that it's complex. So at some points it can be deceptive, and we are here for the long run. So we need to be not candid, to say the truth, say that things are hard, but that it's doable. I think at Buddie-Pack you have proved things, we have proved things, Citeo is proving things every day on that topic. And so it was a very good example that you gave, Kieran, because I've worked at Citeo some time ago. Citeo started, I think it was the first of the second PRO in Europe. It was in 1992. It took 20 years to recycle at a certain level on people, and it's not perfect. You cannot ask and reuse to build an infrastructure in a matter of months that is both economically sound with everybody and so on. So we need times. People need to understand that we need time, and we need to build that stair step by step. It's a long-term commitment, and let's go for it.
Thank you for wrapping up nicely. Yeah, I think you brought it to the point. Like, it's really about also creating policy frameworks that create reliability, so to say, that everyone knows this is, yeah, we are in for the long runs. So you can build on something and it's not an unstable situation where you are afraid to put investments. We only have a few minutes left, so instead of asking you for your last takeaways, I would also like to give you the opportunity to ask questions to this panel. Yeah, so the stage is yours. 5 minutes left. Perfect. Giving you more time. No more than 5. Great. No more than 5 minutes for you. Will you hand around the microphone? Perfect. Okay, then.
Anyone have a question? Anyone on the panel? Not a single question. Do any of you have a question for each other? You want to do?
Okay. Interesting. So either this was a very good presentation or...
Question. I have a question for you. Is it okay? I wonder how we can create these spaces where researchers and policymakers meet and learn from each other. Do you have any ideas? I think that would be super, super valuable because we know too little about the psychological knowledge that is so important when we develop policies.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's enormously important that researchers are talking to policymakers. Just to give a plug then for my other project, I'm part of an initiative called Behavioural Research UK, which was funded by the UK government to look at behaviour across a really wide range of settings. So obviously the environment and sustainability is one of them. But one of the things that's really nice about that project is there are 2 embedded posts in government that are associated with the project. So Go Science, which is the Government Office for Science in the UK, there are 2 postdoctoral level policymakers who provide a bridge between the researchers on that project and policy, and they put us in touch with the right people in government, and they know what we're doing, so they can also, publicise our work to the right people. So I think a call to funding councils to fund not just researchers or not just policy work, but fund them to work together.
Thank you. Well then, we're closing the session with this last comment. Thank you everybody for listening, and we'd be very happy to see you at D24 to discuss the policy briefs we've developed. Thank you.
Thank you.